Hi there, welcome back to Juggernaut Tester Learnings. So we have successfully completed Karate Codeless Automation Test Tool Learnings. So I've done about 21 videos. So if you have not watched that series yet, I strongly recommend you to just go back and complete those learnings because Karate is in trend today. So every team, whoever is in migrating or whoever is using API testing in their project, so they are actually opting for karate. So having karate knowledge is very added advantage as long as you are a tester. So now in this playlist I have little more interesting than that, so which is WireMock. So before we actually discuss about WireMock, what is WireMock and how to work with WireMock and how to create stubs, mocks and all that, I would like to give you a conceptual understanding of like why these mocks and stubs are really required when we wanted to test the real system, why we need to fake this thing and how the application architecture works, like where to deploy these things and at what layer, at in what type of testing these mocks and stubs are used. So only the moment when we understand these things theoretically, so we can connect this to the practical. So that is how I always try to connect my learnings. So please be focused and please travel with me in this video. So I'm sure that you will bag more and more learning as you go by. So in the recent times, like we have been learning over the time that we have traveled from waterfall model to different SDLC models such as iterative model and V model, spiral model, and somehow we are living with agile model. So the reason that still it is agile because agile has no standard protocol. It is just a continuous learning process, like agile does recursive learning. So whatever process that it sees, okay, there is a pain point here and something we need to look into and something we really need to get on top of it. So everywhere we do some self-assessment, we overcome with some solution and we implement it. So in the world, 99 percentage of the teams are using agile these days, but if you actually check what process they follow, and you tend to observe the methodology that they follow and the methodology you follow might get different, because agile is agile is not the standard best. It is nothing but use what best suits for your need. Okay, there is no standard best and there is no template that everybody should be using. Rather they have several models, like they have extreme programming and they have Kanban, they have Scrum, they have Lean. So many frameworks are there. Whatever suits for you best based upon your team capacity or based upon this uh, your team velocity and based upon the type of project that you are implementing, you just pick a one and start working on it so that you see better results. So the reason why I'm giving you a background of agile in the sense, so these stubs mocks are coming as part of this software development lifecycle. So I would like to give you a knowledge about one of the best strategies for any project, especially this is dominating in migration projects, like when your application is migrating from on-premise environment to the cloud platform. Could it be AWS, Azure, GCP, or Pivotal Cloud Foundry? So whatever it may be the cloud solution, so everywhere the approach that is taken is TDD, which is test driven development. So test driven development, what does it do in the sense? It shifts the testing process towards the left. So ideally, if you take any software development life cycle, so testing starts right after the implementation. So you might do some testing when the development goes on, but that is a kind of starting testing. You do some verification, document testing, or you will review some plans and all that. But now when it is TDD, you do the practical hands-on, you will do the implementation testing before even the development starts. The name itself indicates it is driven by the test. So the team of business analyst, product owner, testers, and the developers, so they all sit together, understand the requirements. So they just split that into a smaller chunks, as small as possible, and then try to get the knowledge. They'll make the requirement very, very crystal clear, so that all can understand it and they can come up with a lot of test scenarios. Say for example, I wanted to test the login functionality of a Facebook or a Gmail. So I need to understand the functionality first, like how many fields are required. So I know that I have two fields like username and password, and I will have a button. And let's go deep inside. What are the field level rules? Like what are the rules for username field? What are the rules for password field? And these scenarios are identified, and the test scenarios are written already. And then the production code is developed so that the tests are green. So test driven development, if I were to conclude in a one single statement, not even a single line of production code is written until the tests are executed and they are seen failed. Tests have to fail first, and the developer's target is to make them green by adding the code. And in this continuous process we will learn, and if wherever there is some refactoring of code is required, and we do that, and it gives a lot of opportunity for us to do a code clean and coverage and all that. So in the TDD approach, since we have to start our testing very, very early, when we are not waiting on development, like how do you test it? So there we are pretty much relying on the concept of mocking, stubbing and faking the services. So this is where I wanted to connect the whole conceptual understanding to my learning. I hope now you understand what is mock and when to use mock and why mocks are really required. And I have in detail explanation in our in my next slides as well. So let's get started. So before discussing the why mock, so we are discussing the theoretical part of it. Yeah, then later we move on to why mock hands-on. So now I would like to explain you the application architecture. So I've just taken a very simple architecture where a system consists of a front end and a service layer, business logic layer, and data layer or database. So you have UI, and services might be developed in REST or SOAP or GraphQL services you have, and you have some database or SQL services or SQL database or Oracle database. So a typical application, what does it do in the sense? It just fetches the data from database and it processes and it just display it on the UI. So the services are the core of an application where the data is actually processing and the logics are being performed, and it is talking to external system as well based upon the need. So whatever the action that you do on the front end, it could be a login operation, it could be a sign up operation, or it could be invoking another URL. So everything is an API call. So the front end is being connected to your service. So there is a specific endpoint that will actually process your request, and that will arrange the required data that it is needed, and then it does the call and it does the needed activity for you. So that is the reason services are very, very essential for any application to be working properly. So on my screen you are seeing a figure. So it is a basic schematic of an application, and this application is mainly operating it on two platforms, mobile platform and a browser desktop version. So if you have looked into this diagram, only the front end varies, the back end system is constant. I mean, irrespective of the platform, whether you are a mobile user or whether you are a desktop user, so same services are being called. So think of it, that is how it should be. Say, just for the reason I'm using my mobile phone, I should have a different way of logging in mechanism, and just for the reason that you are doing desktop version, you should have a different way of logging in mechanism. So that is not the case. So whatever the platform it is, so user experience should not affect, it is the same. So how the data that is being fetched from the database, or how it is processed from in the service layer, is represented based upon the platform. So that is the front end's duty, like how they have to display the data based upon the screen sizes and based upon the alignment and based upon the color. So it all depends upon the how you groom your front end, so how you actually place your elements and all that. Yeah. So I hope you have a decent understanding of basic application architecture. So let's see a couple more diagrams of the same. If you have seen, I have a basic Spring Boot application like Spring Service. you have a web and where you have a controller mechanism and you have a database. So it is actually receiving the request and it is giving the response, and it is also talking to another API, which is weather API. So what does it do in the sense, like it receives a request and it processes it and it gives a response. So, and also at times, say for example, the data that you are requesting for is not present with me, so I need to talk to another service to get that data for you. So API has that ability to do that. So that is the application, that what exactly I'm showing it on my screen. So now we have a decent understanding about service and why it is required and what role it is playing. So just understand the definition now. So a service is basically a component which basically performs a business logic. So it interfaces your UI and database as well. So I think that is how we have seen in our previous diagrams as well. So this is all about a service. Now you might have a question that why do we need to mock services? Like why do we need to mock services? Like what happens like if we do not have a mocking mechanism? Say guys, like any application that starts from the backend, like you will have to set up your infrastructure, then you'll have to build your services, then you'll have to develop UI accordingly. So it might go in parallel, but services are given more priority because that is where your business rules are written. Now let us connect this development with the test driven strategy. So where as a testing team we have to pitch in first before the development kick starts. So how do you, like how is that even possible? Like as a tester, as a testing team, so my role is only after the completion of an application, after successful implementation I have something for test, but now you are asking me to test even before the development completes. Like how that even possible? So there comes the picture of writing mocks and writing stubs. Like why we need to write stuff? Because you will end up writing stubs or mocks in two scenarios that I'm currently displaying it on my screen. One, when the development is not completed, you have to write stubs for yourself and test it, and when the real system is available, point to the right URL and test again. And second thing is when you don't have access to external API. Say for example, I'm testing Flipkart application, so I belong to Flipkart, and I'm making a payment through PayPal payment gateway. So in my testing environment, so I might not have engagement with PayPal. So Flipkart in my lower environment, so in production they are connected, it does communicate, but in my development or in my staging environment or in my QA environment, so I might not have that engagement, that downstream engagement connected. So then I need to create a stub that actually impersonates the PayPal gateway, like how PayPal gateway actually receives the data from Flipkart and how it processes and how it responsible. So the exact functionality I need to create a stub and test it. So that is where you can start testing before, in parallel or before the development gets started. I think now we have understood what is a TDD strategy and how testing team can test before even the development starts, and we have also understood the application architecture and we have understood the service. And let's go beyond and see what are really mocks, how many types of mocks are there. So there we go. So we have now interesting keyword, which is test doubles. So test doubles is nothing but all the mocks or stubs or fakes are actually coming under the category of test double. So test double is nothing but it is a duplicate service, so which does the same activity as the real-time system. Like imagine guys, like we do watch a lot of movies, and in many of the movies, like you do expect some fighting scenes or scenes that have lot of stunts. So the professional actors might not be able to do all of them given their nature of the work or given their lifestyle. So in that case, like how do you actually get this done, get that activity done? But as a film director, I want that to be done, but my professional actor, like who I have recruited, is not ready to do so. So in that case, I have to deploy a person, like I have to deploy a test double, a duplicate person who does that for me, and in the process of editing I will somehow show it in a way that it was done by my professional actor. So in the same way, if I were to connect this particular definition to my software world, so test double is something, a duplicate service which impersonates, which replicates my API service. So test doubles are of three types: fake, stub and mock. The another name for fake is dummy, another name for stub is spy, and you have mock, which is a standalone name. Let's see what each one of them and how does that work. So let's discuss fake. So fake is nothing but it is a replica of an existing system. Yeah, so fake is generally used in any project when we have full real-time system. Like I have a legacy application already, like in my mainframe technology I wanted to change that to some high new technology. It could be Angular technologies or Node technologies. Like I wanted to migrate that application. So in that case, so during the process of migration I might not have the complete infrastructure to test is not would have not completed, so then I write a fake. So unless you have a real system built in already, you cannot design a fake. Okay, and also fake are usually slow, and fake is an exact replica of real-time system, and it takes a whole lot of development activity just to design a fake and test it. So just the figure describes one such a fake. Here if you see, the login user is coming through a login service. So ideally the login service is using account DAO service, and it fetches the data from database just to make sure you are an authenticated user and you are authorized as well. But now in the process of fake, we have taken a route and now we are reaching a dummy repository which is HashMap. So we have a fake implementation. So one good example if I were to give you, I don't have my database ready. What I do, I use some of my in-memory database as my database and I test it for my temporary need. So it is just the backend system that would be changed later in point in time, but my service implementation is going on. So just for the sake of testing purpose, I'll use my in-memory database, in-memory repository, and I'll test it. So here my intention is as long as a intended API is being invoked and it fetches the data, that's fine, because tomorrow when I just connect any other database, it does the same more or less. So in that context, you basically use fake. Fake takes a lot of effort and it is usually slow. And also understand that fake is only possible when you have the real system existing, but it might be running in your legacy or vintage environments. And let us see stubs. So stubs are little intelligent than fakes. Like how different these stubs are in the sense, stubs are preloaded, like stubs already have data. Like stubs are created through contract. When I say contract, so what you need from me and what you give me back. Okay, so I create a Groovy message or a JSON message saying that, okay, so this is how the request should appear and this is the response I'll give you back. So I'm creating a stub, say for example, I'm creating a stub for a basic get call, just an API login. I wanted to fetch how many number of users are present in my application. So usually if you wanted to query something, you do a get call. So in this get call, I have to describe that, okay, this stub accepts a get call, and when this stub is being invoked, it should give a status code 200 and response as list of users. So this is an agreed contract, like nothing else should happen other than this. So then what I do, this stub I'll preload with the rules that were given to me, and I'll just keep it with me, and I'll deploy it in my local host so that I can point it to my local and I can complete my testing. But stubs have no logic in them. So if you see, that is just a JSON message. For a specific request, it is giving me a specific response, but I cannot test the edge cases. An advantage is that it does not require an environment and it reduces the boilerplate code. Boilerplate code is nothing but the reusable code, so that you can just reuse these stubs. And as I told you, like stubs are not intelligent systems. Like it just gives the static response every time. If you wanted to test 10 requirements, it is essential that you have 10 stubs in place. Yeah, so that is how the stub. So let's see the figure, like how the stub operates. So here also the same, like average grades, the grade service is invoked. So instead of connecting to the DB, I'm actually connecting to a stub which has the grade system, and it is fetching, like based upon the category. If the marks are above 80 it gives the grade A. If the marks are below 60 it gives the grade B, something like that, based upon the rules that we incorporate. And the next type is mock. Mocks are little intelligent on stub. So mocks can do recording as well. Like mocks can help us record. What is recording? Like why do we need to record the call? So stubs are nothing but a single API testing. Say for example, in my application I have 10 APIs. One is to get number of users, one is to get a specific user, one is to create a user, one is to delete a user, one is to update a user, like, and so on. I have some 10 endpoints, say suppose. Stub is nothing but testing a specific endpoint and how each endpoint behaves. But mocks are something which can help us to replicate the end-to-end scenario. I'll create a user and then I'll fetch the user, and I'll also ensure that the created user has added to the list of users, then I'll update user, so then I'll delete the user. So this kind of end-to-end call. So the entire orchestration, the sequence of events are actually recorded. And also mocks come into picture when you need to talk to an external service. As I was explaining before, in the transaction between the Flipkart and the PayPal system, what ideally happens is that the moment when you give the details and the submit button, so what PayPal expects? So PayPal needs like what is the merchandise cost and what is the username, and it expects your bank details and so on information. It expects your address, it expects your mobile number and all that, just to send you notifications. So the PayPal gateway receives the information. If at all the user has already some money loaded, it just uses its wallet. On the other hand, it has to go to another API, which is the concerned bank. It could be API, or it could be Axis Bank, or it could be ICICI Bank, based upon the user's choice. So internally here, there are 3 downstreams are involved, like from Flipkart and PayPal and the banking system. Like the 3 downstreams are engaged for one specific transaction. So what we do in the sense, as a mock, we will record the entire transaction, saying that, okay, as a PayPal administrator, what details you expect from me, so that the Flipkart ensures that it sends you, and what you are expecting as a Flipkart administrator, what you are expecting back. And in a similar fashion, they might have a similar agreement between Axis and them, and what they do, they finally create a contract, and that contract would be placed in a server or in your Nexus server or in your local repository, and that would be used for your testing. And one more thing is, mock internally uses stubs. So stubs are something which are used to test a specific endpoint, and in this end-to-end transaction, it is possible that one or more endpoints are involved. So what mock does, it internally uses stubs. Okay, so the understanding is that mocks can record the transaction, and mocks will be helpful when you are testing the external system, and mocks will use the stubs internally. Okay, so basically mocks are used when you don't have access to a specific engagement in your lower test environments. Yeah, so here the figure shows one such a mock where you have couple of stubs created, like a window mock and the door mock. So here you are actually verifying the on and off mechanism. And also at times, like in our lower environment, I don't expect a response from PayPal back. Like as long as I can be able to invoke the PayPal API, that's fine for me, because when we are working with the different downstreams, every downstream is given some scope, like your testing is only to this level, from there the other downstream's duty. So that is how you engage and you ensure that the flow is proper. Okay, so say for example, I am testing a messaging system, and right after every successful creation, I am sending an email. So in my lower environment, I might not have SMTP server, I might not have Exchange server, so that I cannot receive a mail. So now, instead of concentrating on receiving an email, as long as my email service is invoked, that is fine for me. So tomorrow when I integrate the server, so anyhow that is done for me. Okay, so that confidence. So it is all about understanding the flow and imitate, and what you can do, just do it. Okay, that is how the mock. And fourth type, I actually forgot to capture in my previous slide. This is called service virtualization. So service virtualization also one of the booming technology now. So it is the same thing, like when any particular service is not ready, you will just do the imitation of the same. But service virtualization is generally used in a very large enterprise applications, like it is not used in a smaller projects. So there are several tools to do that, like Mountbank, CA virtualization, Tricentis Tosca, WireMock. They can do service virtualization, and WireMock can also act as a mocking service too. Okay, so this is what the service virtualization is all about. So that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for listening me throughout. I hope this is a great learning, and importantly, this is a new learning for most of you, I think, because this is the standard which has been adopted by the industry very recently. And trust me, these are the technologies which are going to rule the industry in coming decade. So please stay on top on these technologies. So travel with me in these learnings. I hope you will have a lot of exciting knowledge. And if you have any questions around, if you have any doubts, so please contact me on my handles. So I'm also ensuring that I post these channel links in the social media, so that the people who might be interested are also assisted. Please do encourage, please subscribe to my channel, and please do hit a like if you feel that you have learned something really great. Thank you so much, guys. You have a great rest of today.